Welcome to our session today between Microsoft and Crateio to discuss cloud and edge technologies for smart factories. Before we get started today, I'd like to introduce ourselves so we're not unknown. So let me, since I'm already talking, my name is Eva Schönleitner. I'm the CEO of Crateio, and I'll explain in a little bit what Crate actually does. Let me hand over to Oliver.
Hello, well, thanks for the introduction, Eva. Great pleasure actually to be here. So I'm Oliver Niedung. I'm an IT specialist with Microsoft. Maybe some in the audience might know me from the activities over the last couple of years. And it's really a great pleasure co-presenting here with Crate about your activities, particularly also around Crate OM.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for having you today. I'm glad that we have also an IoT and technical specialist with us to discuss the topic. Before we even start here, just a few small items for the session today. So I've been told I need to tell us the housekeeping. First off, we address the questions at the end. That's almost right. The best way to do this is to open up the question and answer field in the Zoom call, and then just start typing away as we talk about it, and it scrolls by us, so we will keep watching. If it gets resolved and answered anyway in the upcoming presentation, we'll just it'll be self-serve, so to speak. And if there's other ones that we keep an eye out for it, and we'll make sure that we address it. So you don't need to wait till the very end. Just start typing there, and we will just look out for the questions. This is a webinar, so you are on mute, unfortunately. So that's your way to just ping us and talk to us. And of course, we're also available later after the session as well, and we'll push in of how you can get a hold of us. So that was all of that. Let's start the topic. And as we get with this, I'm going to give it to Oliver here to set the stage. Why are we even talking about this?
Yeah, thank you, Eva. And so first of all, I wanted to share just two quick insights from our most recent IoT Signals Report. For all of you, you might want to search for it in your favorite search engine, look for IoT Signals 3. So there you can actually find the entire report if it is interesting for you. But as we're talking particularly about the topic of manufacturing here, I wanted to highlight two really important observations that we've done with the many people actually that we were interviewing. And one is on the left-hand side, what you can see is from actually all the companies that are right now already busy implementing. On the one hand side, you see in terms of the maturity in the 4 stages that we actually split it into, there's about equal amount of size of people who are in learn, trial, purchase, or use. So it's pretty much equal. Where in the past years, it was rather early stages considering because there was a lot to consider, and now people really are heavy in implementation on different stages. But also, when you look at the top benefits, it's really the top 3 really are here also to set the ground for the conversation that Eva is going to guide us through, because all 3 are super applicable here. It is really about the increased efficiency of operations, as well as a better production output or capacity, as well as actually to reduce the chance for human error. All of those people are familiar in manufacturing, have a big impact on OEE and your overall efficiency that you can actually have within your production. Also, when people are going into IoT adoption, on the right-hand side, you see the most expectations that people have. And also here, if you just look at the first 2, quality and compliance as well, to facilitate industrial automation, they're very applicable. So what we're going to talk about over the next couple of slides, and what Crate is in, is something that is from both expectations, but even more so from proven benefits from IoT already there. So when we then move actually to the next slides, I also would like to give you a quick update on some of the strategic areas that we from Microsoft would recommend you to prioritize this calendar year. And we all are aware that really manufacturing is coming back from the pandemic right now, some more than others. And it's really about accelerating the transformation. Some of you have been putting on fire because you have actually accelerated your transformation. So was Microsoft. We went through tremendous pressure in accelerating a lot of the activities, and some other activities that we've seen that were a little bit on hold have seen a phenomenal acceleration, and that will continue. The 5 areas that we're seeing is, one is in the area of the agile factory. So we really see that companies should really look at to identify the absolutely vital data and the right use cases. You will also see some bullets, because you will find some of these words back in people's strategies, as well as why they are doing certain activities. And the second one is then resilient supply chain. This has been big discussion over the last year and a half, and it still continues. And this is really what we're seeing. People wanted to break down the silos. Now it's about doing it. So really becoming a data-driven company in order to becoming more resilient. And some of the companies that we're working with really implement these control towers to get the visibility on what's happening before and after their own part of the supply chain. Next element is really unlock the digital engineering, because innovation needs to be driven more on a fast track. And here's some of these reasons. One is also cloud gives a lot of elasticity, but most companies that we're working with in manufacturing, they really believe in the edge. And we actually fully embrace this as well, because we really see both the benefit of the cloud and the edge computing. So both is important, but also we're right now looking into the industrial metaverse. So how can you build more metaverse capabilities in a company? So that's going to be keeping us busy over the next couple of years, actually. Sustainability is a very strong focus. It has just been a side topic for many, and now it's very often companies, partners, as well as customers coming to us, and they want to have sustainability by design. So it is a very different from being just a want to have into a must have right now. And last but not least, it's really about making the employees a superhero. It's really about empowering your workforce, and you see you can win new talents, you can get new capabilities, and also change your industry. And this was one of the things also, Eva, that you told me about what you're addressing. Really make the employees superheroes with the solution that you're about to share with us. And this is why on the next slide, we're just going to show you a little bit on what we invested in from a Microsoft side. And then Eva will show you and how you can make employees superheroes then. Now, when you look into a lot of the activities from Microsoft, and some of you might have seen also the good results that we delivered to Wall Street, there is a really nice view on what we're doing and innovating in the cloud. On the left-hand side, you can see the global infrastructure. If you click on it, really nice animation where you can get a lot of insight into where we're investing into the world's computer. And on the
my
right-hand
clicking today doesn't work, so I'm gonna just leave that.
Okay, clicking works.
It just clicks on further.
Yeah, I'm almost done anyway. But on the right-hand side also, we shared yesterday, because the norm is now rather multi-cloud than just one cloud. And even though we're investing heavily to really become the best citizen for any cloud workload, then actually we really want to make sure that we also enable multi-cloud environments. And so Azure Arc has tripled over the last 12 months. So there's a phenomenal momentum if you look into Cloud Native Compute Foundation solutions. So you can have a single pane of glass through Azure Arc on all your hybrid activities, whether it runs in the cloud, on any kind of cloud vendor, or on premises. But with that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Eva, because you please tell us what you're working on to give these capabilities to all your
Well,
partners.
thanks so much, because I mean, you set it up nicely. I mean, why we using and talking about this together is we built some solutions that are very tightly knit with Microsoft, both in the cloud and on the edge. And so I want to just share of how this worked and what we're actually doing here, especially in the area of smart manufacturing. So first off, what is Crateio? I promised that I'd briefly say what it is. We're actually a technology company that the core foundational product we have is a database that is highly scalable for operational data. So this means it's really meant for digitalization use cases, and specifically also we have lots of customers in the manufacturing space, and this is where actually we came out of originally. And then end of last year, we launched a second solution on top where the database is the foundational engine. We call it Crateio. It's an application actually for the factory workers to really truly enable them to operate the plants and the factories at the basically best possible. And it has great savings, but also a huge adoption with the workers themselves. So it's a combination of that, but very much manufacturing focused. We are based in Austria, in Dornbirn on the western side. Also, we're in Switzerland. I'm myself in Zurich today, and in Germany as well as in the US. So customers, when you take a quick look at this, there's a lot of industrial customers in there, and in fact, manufacturing companies. I think there's a top line there. There's a lot of consumer packaged good ones, drinks, lighting, and so on. So I basically just proving what I just said. So what is this now? The combination of Crateio and how did we implement the cloud on the edge, and how does this scale? And this is one of the use cases. There's many other use cases, of course, in a smart factory implementation. But this one actually we came out of with the collaboration of one of our lighthouse customers and said, no, we really should be not just doing one project that is for this one customer, but make it market available. So what it is, it's actually a mobile application for the workers that they actually get smartphones issued by the company. In this case, our customer also has noise canceling earphones that the workers have in their ears, and that way they can be hands-free with notifications and alarms. So what does our application? It's really two things. So one, you can basically, I mean, every factory has operating manuals and processes. You can basically apply these processes and set them up very easily in a step-by-step checkbox type workflow situation. And then each worker, including supervisors, different roles of workers, basically checks off the items and works them off. And if you can't do it for some reason, machine X needs to be changed at 11 o'clock, you can send the work order, so to speak, to your peer, and he or she will do this. And then the information goes back into whatever the master is in the company. It could be the application, it could also be some other system, like an MES system, to where you have the operational controls and the reporting happening there. But what this does is a very quick standardization of how your workers operate and that they do the right thing. In fact, there is actually embedded videos in there for the real machines in that plant that, if they're critical, for a quick help to manual, so to speak, that is real-time online on the phone. As you're standing in front of it, you just click on that and you see in a few seconds what you're supposed to do. If you don't need it, you don't need it, but it's there. The second thing what our lighthouse customer did is like, this is great for standardizing procedures and also making sure that the procedures get optimized over time by the actual team members and operators there, but obviously there is controls going back to the standard operating procedures. Why don't we just use this now that we have the workers using the cell phones and have a great tool in their hands, and also centralize all the alarms of their factory? All the alarms go into one central point. The central point in this case, in the old days we say single pane of glass. In this case, it's the single pane of glass for a worker, the cell phone. And all the machine alarms go in real time into the application and then trigger actions immediately. So it affects what in manufacturing we call the control loop. That assumes it's real time, it's very fast. It also, you can add intelligence to this to basically tell the worker this is very important or this is not so important. And because there's the strong workflow embedded in the application, if you can't do it, but it's very, very important, then you can send it over to the next person. And so not only then, that was step 2. Step 3 is, I am getting the alarms, but it's kind of late when the alarm rings because something is already off. I want to have predictive information in there. And so as a 3rd step, we basically then added predictive information, added sensor data coming out of the machines that basically then go into an analysis rhythm and into the application as well. So you get notifications in terms of, in case of a certain level of temperature goes down or a certain level of something, some KPI that's really critical. So you actually get predictive information in real time as the machinery operates to the worker. This truly avoids then the alarms, and it also really allows the workers and the operators to basically manage the factory at the optimal condition. I realize the slide maybe doesn't quite say that, but this is exactly what we did. And it brought great benefits, not only in the worker productivity in gearing up, especially if a lot of turnover on this, and you're going towards lean manufacturing, but also in bringing up OEE and NEE very rapidly, especially for factories that were running at a mid to low to mid OEE. The very top ones, obviously, is less incremental benefit, but if for the mid ones, you see double-digit OEE increasements very rapidly because of this. Instead, what I'd like to do, me talking, I'd like to maybe show it briefly what this is, but I'm going to ask a colleague to run a video so that it actually goes well, if I may. Stop share. I'm stopping sharing. There we go.
Next level. With Alpla Smart Production, we aim to develop a solution that identifies problems real time on the production floor and then provides a solution support system as they encounter the problem. Therefore, we introduce Crateio because the system has huge advantages for us with this idea of a process monitoring and process flow digitalization. It's scalable, which is important to cover at the end stage 180 sites, and it allows us to take the learnings from the different sites and with that continuously feed and improve the operating system, and with that create more impact on the floor.
Crateio is a smart...
Good enough. Thank you. All right, let me share. So you saw roughly what that application is. The person speaking there was actually the CEO of the company. The company is called Alpla. They are a leader in producing plastic bottles for companies like Coca-Cola or many others, like all the soap, not all, but many of the soap items or dishwash liquids, all these plastics, soap dispensers, when you go to the grocery aisles, that comes from Alpla. So why am I saying this now? And what is translation to technology here? When you look at this is a SaaS application. We did this in collaboration with Microsoft, so it runs in the Azure cloud today, and we're running this in the cloud live in real time, 7/24 in 20 plants today. And it has an SLA. So the SLA means an alarm gets triggered or one of these notifications, or the sensors say a machine is going towards the critical item, needs to go up to the cloud, being analyzed, come back to the worker within 2 seconds in this case. So that's what I'm speaking of. It connects directly with the MES system of our Lighthouse customer, and also with the backend ERP systems. And obviously, we're talking about a mobile interface, but also the same application is available on tabs in a larger form factor. And for consolidated view, you heard it from the CEO, You can then see what's going on in the various plants with the different errors and so on. It's obviously also a cloud-based web interface, so you can analyze later as well and view at any time. The same thing as you scale this, you heard in this case the CEO speaking, oh, they have 180 plants. What we realized, and you I'm sure realized this as well, as you add more transactions, and this being only one application, now I think many smart factory applications running in a plant, creating lots of data, being operated, being analyzed in real time, the cost factor is a linear cost factor as you add more. And so many customers, including Microsoft, and that's why you built the Edge as well, is that you want to build then a combination of Edge and cloud. And what am I talking about? That you have, for instance, an application like this running in the factory, so per factory, have a little server. The application gets managed centrally, so you don't need IT people in every factory, which is something you don't have, I'm sure. Nobody does. So you manage it, you upgrade it, you deploy it centrally, but the application and the compute with all these transactions and analyzing all these sensor data and all these alarms is in the factory itself. And then you send selectively certain things into the cloud, maybe the anomalies, maybe you send summaries, you definitely want summaries. You can have comparisons, you send the summary error reports and things like that, because then you can compare plant versus plant, and where are you seeing errors, which machines are having problems. And the same goes with the processes of how people go through the day. So this is why it's critical. We also saw another critical area is not every country has a fast enough internet provider or broadband today, especially in some countries in Asia and South America. And then if you have such a high SLA, you basically affect the control loop. You can't be waiting X minutes or half an hour until something comes back. Mostly it's minutes. So then you also really want the combination of edge and cloud, where the cloud component is basically the learning model, the visualization, the summarization, a mixture of transaction if you choose to, but you're less dependent on that. So that's what we're seeing here. Oliver, are you seeing something similar?
Oh, you bet, actually. You reminded me a lot of the things why people are asking for hybrid solutions. And it's really, you talked about it. One is really to have low latency. That's really one of the things, but also have cost control, because you don't want to put everything to the cloud. But you will always want to put metadata to the cloud. So this is where we actually see the very same thing. And it's, but people then wanting to have a single pane of glass for also a lot of the AI workloads. So you want to have containers that you model and then also deploy from the cloud, but other people really also want to have it triggered from the cloud. So it's always this consultation about how do you model the flow here. And I think you found a really nice approach, a very easy way for manufacturers to embrace the communication between the people. So I really think this is particularly for those who are in need of such a solution. It's a very straightforward way how you could actually experience it and work on it. And I think you also have an idea and offering for people who want to get their hands dirty with your solution in the near time frame. But we'll probably come to that slide. I think I've seen it.
No, I appreciate it. So how does something like this connect? The answer, as always, coming from the technology, it depends. I know you hate that. But in this case, let's say our Lighthouse customer, we connected to the MES. The MES is the master also of the operations procedures, the master of reporting and documentation for compliance. And that customer is using the application as an overlay to basically affect and act very centrally. They have a mishmash of different applications. As you know, I mean, it's the same more or less everywhere. Manufacturers have different applications. They have, of course, every machine has an alarms. but then every manufacturer has a different kind of monitoring system for this. And also very often, depending how new your applications or your factory is and your machines in there, very often the central point is somewhere at the corner of a factory or in the supervisor's office. And this is all not very useful. This is very useful if you're the supervisor, but if you're the operator and you as the company trying to optimize the number of operators, be running around in a big factory with very few people, from the supervisor's office trying to figure out what's going on, or some corner of one of these applications to basically figure out what's going on and run to the other side to a machine and do something. And this is why, in this case, Alplaville is centralized to have something on the worker, ideally hands-free, and also, obviously being able, in terms of a safety perspective, to be completely, operating freely in the sense.
And if some people would argue how much the automation pyramid is still valid today. And I think you found a nice solution to it, because you say, hey, you can easily extend capabilities of the automation pyramid with Crateio. We could equally actually see this as a potential to break out of the chains of the pyramid. So I think you're taking the best of two worlds and bringing it and making it really easy for people to embrace it. So what is your impression? Is this also what you're hearing?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the design of the matter, and it really depends. And the reason why I say it depends how fast the company wants to have this information back, how fast these systems update. Because if, for instance, I'm picking on the MES again, that system will only update once an hour, and you want something to the workers in 2 minutes or 2 seconds, that is not going to work. So we need to then take the data from somewhere else a bit lower to get it more real time. If real time isn't the issue, and you don't want this, let's say, control loop effect and the machine data and all of this, but you only want maybe a worker training manual, and that doesn't change every day, then this may be perfectly fine. And this is the way to set up. It's also really critical to understand what is your data structure and what is your governance, where your master sitting. So it's clear where the data comes from, where the data goes to. Just to clarify, the data in the Crateio are always your data and only you see them. So this seems probably obvious, but I'm just restating this. We are an application provider, as is Microsoft, and the data is yours and not anybody else's. So I think I briefly mentioned what the benefits are. It's really two benefits, core ones. One is on the worker productivity side in this use case, and the other one is so ramp up of productivity. And the second one was actually a real OE improvement in a reduction of plastic granulates the company is needing to use, because for every product everybody produces, there is a range of how much raw material needs to be in there, and I'm sure it's much more complex. And most companies write it in the middle to be safe, to have a bigger range. In this case, but if you have tight controls, you can run the machines at the very low edge of the range. Since this is the main cost driver for this one customer, you can actually then run it very low, which then is a huge OE improvement, meaning cost reduction. I get a question here, what is the possibilities to customize the system in different plants? You absolutely need to customize this, because most plants aren't the same, and pretty much most plants also don't have the same machines, and also you produce different things usually. So what we are basically think it's a fancy workflow engine that has a pretty deep component of how you define the users, type of users, the operator, and this type of operator, and that type of operator. So you can actually have this customization, and you set up the processes based on plant. You can have what we're trying and what we just did is, you can have a base. Let's say you produce the same product in multiple plants, but there are small variations of how they are done and what machines you have in there. probably the 80-20 rule you can have with a standard set of your processes you set up in one, and then just basically transfer, and then you make more minor modifications to make it fit. And that obviously then simplifies the affair because you don't have to recreate everything from scratch. But you can definitely customize, and it is customized by plant. So what I mentioned, that there is, I think everybody knows that the smart factory, kind of curve and path. We're really starting in the third level here, where you basically get real-time information, and then not only real-time, but you can have the predictive information as well. What it doesn't do, because obviously it's worker-centric, while the centralization and the simplification, standardization of what you do, of course, then the idea is to use fewer workers. Also, this running around from one corner to another, you basically optimize number of resources, but it does assume that there are workers. So it's best for factories where you have, we're working on lean principles, you're trying to continuously improve and make your staff as productive as possible. Then this is a good choice as one of the smart factory applications to be using. Just as an underlying thing, technically going back to that side, I talked about the cloud and the edge and in this application, but let's say you don't have this one there specifically. Pick any other one. You have the same topics of cloud and edge implementations. I said earlier on, and why am I so deep into this? Because our core initial product is this database for operational analytics, meaning you can have sensor data and structured data and videos and images from maybe X-rays and things like that in this one database and analyze in real time a lot of data. And this is exactly for other use cases where we've seen exactly the same situation, where it's best to have an edge approach, edge and cloud, so hybrid, but always the goal is the old on-prem days, honestly, really truly are over, especially with digitalization, because you don't have IT people everywhere in these plants. And you do want to deploy the applications and upgrade remotely. So we do this very often via Kubernetes and then get it down to basically the edge computers. And of course, in this case, also very tightly aligned with all the components of the Azure cloud and the edge components, because obviously you don't want to be in some, it needs to fit into an ecosystem really deeply to be optimally deployed. I'm going to do one more thing and then I'm going to go into more questions here. So somebody already asked, well, how does this work? And what we did is what I just described, this Crateio solution is, we opened an early adopter program. Why did we do this? Because in manufacturing, as we all know, there's a lot of variations. And I want to make sure that the next few customers, that we don't become too myopic on a few customers, but really prioritize what we do in the roadmap based on the next few customers. So if you tell me, I have a plant which one of our early adopter customers is already working on. I have a plant in Malaysia, and in Malaysia the internet is not fast enough. I really need this edge deployment right now in my first plant. Then we're going to make sure that this is the first we're going to work on. Typically, the easiest way to try something like this is to just basically do it cloud-based, because then they compute this with us, and you just basically set something up and in a little test facility or in a test lab, and you don't need to worry about computers or connectivity or anything like that. But this is why we did an early adopter program. If you are interested, then we can definitely, you just ping me or you just go to this the alias in the website. What sort of ERP systems does it integrate with? All the standard ones and the obvious ones. Our pilot customer is actually a Dynamics customer, so I see Oliver smiling already from ear to ear. But one of the other key providers, of course, there is SAP and Oracle. The answer is yes. And if it's some other ones, just let us know. But why am I saying this so smoothly? The underlying engine of this application is our database, and our database we've had for 7 years, and that connects with basically all the major players. And so this is why this works. So if you're interested, go to this website. The video is in there now. Contact the alias, because that's the team that actually works on this right away. Or if you want to talk to me, then I have a slide later how to contact me, my email, I'm on LinkedIn, and we can talk more about this. But if you have another case where you're building a different application, but you're interested in this really highly scalable kind of operational database where you can put all these applications in, not just one, but all, then contact me as well, of course, self-servingly. So I've talked way long. Oliver, tell me, what are your thoughts? Let's get to you a bit more, because I've kind of hawked up the last few minutes.
Yeah, no, so thanks, Eva, really. I think you shared great about the value of Crateio. What really triggers me most is, hey, what are the key questions from the audience? So if you have questions, whatever it might be, let us know so that Eva can go in and answer them, because this is your opportunity to get it really from Eva directly to understand how it could be applicable to you, and also what the value could be. No better than that right now. So use the opportunity if you have a question. Besides that, if we're working quite long between Microsoft and Crateio together. So what is your impression of the partnership? How does the collaboration go for you?
Well, I mean, obviously we're two technology companies, and the fundamental thing is technology alignment. And that means we're really deeply aligned on the roadmaps where we're both going. Because, I mean, you have Azure as the underlying cloud, and then anybody who's looked at my LinkedIn, you saw that I was with an industrial company before, many, many years of software. So that's how I also get very deep into the manufacturing topic. So when we looked at the edge, it's like, wow, we as a database, we need the edge. Microsoft, what do we have? I mean, everybody knows that pretty much every customer starts picking an ecosystem. And then the best way to basically build your applications and is to basically build out of that ecosystem. And so Microsoft has been very deep in manufacturing from what I can see, and you tell me, Oliver. And so we not only, of course, it all started with the database and how does this fit with Azure, and making sure that it's tightly integrated on the edge and the cloud. Now we're adding Crateio. And in addition to this, now, of course, we're out there together, especially also in Europe and North America, to jointly work with manufacturing customers on manufacturing use cases. And so we are also part of one of these Microsoft manufacturing initiatives, where we basically together go out there. It just makes no sense to go alone. That's just really inefficient from what I find. So what do you see, Oliver? What some of the technologies that you're working on? I mean, it kind of laid it out for you. We're just one, hopefully a very important one partner, but I mean, you work with many others out there in manufacturing to really provide the value to the customers.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ri, also for sharing your experience and giving that insight to everybody. And also, we highly value the collaboration with Crateio, I have to say, because it's really very deep. You're both challenging, but also embracing and making things happen. And a little while ago, you said we're an application provider. I see it more as a platform provider, and a platform always needs partners to enrich and make it digestible and create the right value. And it's amazing to see how you were growing from a phenomenal first database implementation now to Crateio and other solutions that you're bringing in and pioneering in a number of areas. When it comes to the platform technologies that we're providing, well, let me categorize them a little bit. So first of all, I mentioned a little bit the Azure global infrastructure. That's of the utmost importance that we provide services out of the region, close to the customer where we can. So this is why there's a new Azure data center popping up in a region every few months. Sometimes it feels like every day, but no, it's typically a couple of weeks or months in between. So that is the foundation for a lot of the cloud momentum that we're seeing. And when we look into the technologies that are driving a lot of this, so one of this is really technology for secure access, things like Azure IT Hub or Azure IT Defender, as well as defining the device capabilities with Azure IT Plug and Play. So that's one of these areas. The next one is, we talked a lot about hybrid today. And so we invest a lot into hybrid. So things like Azure IT Edge, which now has a nested edge capability. Azure Arc that I've mentioned before, to have a single pane of glass for multi-cloud, including on premises, but also Azure Percept that some of you might be familiar with, to really create AI in experiences for the edge, including a studio where you could create it in the cloud, then roll it out to the edge. But also we have everything a data scientists would need, right? Things like Azure Data Explorer or Azure Synapse, because if you like it or not, 80% is still data pre-processing, even in AI scenarios. And this is where the most of the volume is still in the effort. Then it gets at some point into things like Power BI. And believe it or not, Excel is still very vital, because people still love Excel and work and prepare a lot of the data through Excel. We do that too. And also when we look at the industrial metaverse, we have things like Azure Digital Twins, who's an operational graph, a lot of momentum these days, HoloLens, Mesh or Teams, as well as plenty of open source, things like OpenCUA and Digital Twin Definition Language, as well as some of the things that are coming up, like cloud for manufacturing. But also, best of all, I want to say, is really to have our super savvy and performing partners. As you do, you challenge us, you extend the capabilities. So it was a long one. So from what I mentioned, really, Eva, what are the technologies that are essential for you?
Well, for me, I mean, when you look at smart factories, I mean, I'm just an application, when you, basically. And so it's really critical that, you look at, I mean, every factory has a different level of automation. So you need to look at the end-to-end piece. And this is also something when I say, you want Crateio? Yes, please, here it is. But I mean, it assumes a few things. It assumes, for instance, that there is cell phones. And that is not, it's not a no-brainer. I talked about Bluetooth connectivity in this case to maybe earphones. There's other ways to solve this problem, but earbuds. There's other ways to solve the problem, but I'm talking technology. There is also then, I'm talking about sensor data. There assumes there is sensor data coming from machines. Not all machines have that. So the question is, how do we get that? And how does it get from the machine then to the master of either our application or the master of where you're sending the data in? And how often do you need to do this? So there is a connectivity component. So with every factory, basically what we're seeing customers do is you look at what is my smart factory stack. Mostly, I mean, most customers have a very, very diverse hardware in the factories and also of various ages. And it's not like you're going to swap everything out. That's just not efficient. So you see the newer ones, new machines or QA items, the newer ones have all kinds of things in it. The older ones might need a retrofit. You also wonder, where is the biggest bang for the buck? I mean, do you retrofit everything, or what are the critical machines that I really care about, or the critical processes that are in there? So from what I've seen is most customers, they look at some kind of technical team. It could be a data team, or it could be a digital team very often. It could be out of the office of the CIO, but very often I see this, especially manufacturing, coming from the operations side, office of the operations side or quality side, that you basically build a technical stack and plus some governance of what you want to do and how you're going to connect your factories from within the factory to the cloud, to your headquarters, for a certain level of visibility, to your ERP systems and other adjacent systems that you have. And so You may also, what I'm seeing is, obviously, if you have a lot of plants and a complex infrastructure in the sense, hardware and software, then you better take a look at, okay, where are the low-hanging fruits? Because our hardware improvements, even software improvements, they cost money and take time. And while your factories are operating, and we all know every time you make changes in a factory, there is a learning curve to this, and there is a perceived interruption. So the question is, how do you deal with this? It needs to be as easy as possible, as much pre-tested as possible. So one is a question of software and hardware. Another question is a question of people and process and implementation. And maybe that was a long answer to this, but I think actually, as I'm looking, you baited me into this, that actually our time is over for today. So Oliver, thank you very much. Actually, let me just show our contact info here. I hope this was helpful and interesting for the audience today. We did answer several of your questions as they came along, and a few more in the process. And we're very much looking forward to hearing from you afterwards, directly, LinkedIn, email, or if you're really interested in this Crateio solution that we, as an example, showed today with the edge and the cloud in action, then please just go to this early adopter program link and just ping my team, and we can see whether this might be something that's interesting for you. So Oliver, many thanks to you.
Oh, many thanks to our listeners, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.